So I hope, I mean, I don't think it's a big spoiler, but I hope you noticed that Freud wrote this whole thing about how little boys wanted to sort of kill their dads and fuck their moms. Um, do you see that Hamlet is hovering around the same area? He's not quite there, but he's supposed to kill his stepdad, which is close, and he seems bizarrely fascinated by his mother's sex life. I mean, she didn't do anything wrong. Her husband died. We don't know. There's no evidence that she was in on it. Her husband died, and she married, the brother who would become the next king. Like, it's not, she didn't do anything terribly wrong, but Hamlet loses his mind over what he sees as her infidelity. And in a fucked up way, in Hamlet's mind, it's like incest, which is crazy because incest is like when you fuck your brother. Um, but he feels like fucking your brother-in-law is wait, did I get that right? Yeah. Yeah. So but like that's not incest, but Hamlet thinks it is because he's really nuts. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why. So Hamlet is the point of this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here, and I'll try to go over it. But like, the point is, look at the size of this crazy speech, because she still doesn't understand what she's even done. What act that roars so loudly and thunders in the index? You'd think, by the way, that he's going to get mad at her for helping kill his dad, because maybe he thinks she was in on it. That is not. He never brings that up again. What really bothers him is her sex life, not her possibly murderous intentions toward his father, her scheming. And he begins by showing her pictures. He shows her a picture of Hamlet Sr., his dad, and a picture of Claudius, their brothers. Look here upon this picture and on this, the counterfeit presentiment of two brothers. See what, in his first he talks about his biological dad, Hamlet Sr. Um, See what a grace was seated on this brow, Hyperion's curls, the front of Jove himself, an eye like Mars to threaten and command, a station like the herald Mercury, new lighted on a heaven-kissing hill, a combination and a form indeed, where every god did seem to set his seal, to give the world assurance of a man. This was your husband, your old husband. It's not really worth going over that in detail, but Mars, Jove, Hyperion, the point is his dad's like a god, like an ancient Greek, Roman god. And then he says, look you what follows, meaning, okay, that was your first husband. Now let's look at your next husband. Here is your current husband, like a mildewed ear blasting his wholesome brother. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain leave to feed and batten on this moor? So he feels like she's an animal that's gone from a beautiful mountain to a disgusting swamp because she's gone from Hamlet Senior to Claudius. Have you eyes? So it's such a weird thing to get obsessed with. Like Hamlet is going crazy right now because his mother used to be married to someone Hamlet thought was good looking, and now she's married to someone Hamlet doesn't think is good looking. Like, dude, your whole kingdom is in trouble because your uncle killed the king, your father, to take the crown, and you're concerned that your mother is having sex with somebody who's not as good looking as your dad. Like, what the fuck? This place is so crazy. Um, and he's really, and what really upsets him is female sexuality. He doesn't understand because she's supposed to be like a middle-aged lady. He says you cannot call it love. For at your age, the heyday in the blood is tame. It's humble and waits upon the judgment. And what judgment would step from this to this? Meaning, what judgment would step from Hamlet Senior to Claudius. But he says you cannot call it love, right? Because you're not young anymore. You shouldn't be falling in love, right? You don't have these kind of teenager hormones. That's no excuse. He says, sure, sense sure you have, else you could not have motion, right? Obviously your eyes work and your ears work. But sure that sense is apoplexed, like you can see, but there must be something wrong with it that you think Claudius is okay to fuck. For madness would not err, nor sense to ecstasy was ne'er so thralled, but it reserved some quantity of choice to serve in such a difference. Like even a crazy person would choose better than you. What devil was it that has cozened you at Hoodman blind? Meaning, sort of what demon covered your eyeballs and made you marry somebody so ugly? Claudius. Eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling sans all, or but a sickly part of one true sense could not so mope. Oh, shame! Where is thy blush? So he feels like she should be ashamed of herself for wanting to have sex. And he's really, this is an obsessive interest in his mother's sex life. I mean, really, do you want to know anything about your mom's sex life? Because Hamlet is really involved in this. Um, he says, "O rebellious hell, if thou canst mutiny in a matron's bones, to flaming youth let virtue be as wax and melt in her own fire." Meaning, just like if old people can be so lusty, how can we expect young people to be virtuous? Proclaim no shame when the compulsive ardor gives the charge, since frost itself as actively does burn, and reason panders will. Right, lust is controlling you, not your brain anymore. Um, and the queen's upset at this. She says, "Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turn'st my eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their tinct." Right? She. This is an interesting moment. She says she sees black spots on her soul. So she's guilty. She feels guilty of something, although I am not at all clear if she was involved in the murder or if he's actually making her feel guilty about having sex with Claudius and making her feel guilty for being a middle-aged woman that wants to have sex, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to want. And Hamlet's nuts for trying to deny it to her, but she's really but she feels guilty for this. Interestingly, we really get to see the scene go crazy here because Hamlet won't stop. She's pretty much agreeing with his point here, right? She just said, "I have black spots on my soul," but Hamlet can't let it go. He has to keep yelling. "Nay, but to live in the rank sweating of enseamed bed, stewed in corruption, honeying and making love over the nasty sty." This is happening in her bedroom. And he's talking about how your bed is like a nasty sty for pigs to fuck, because that's basically what Claudius is. I mean, and she's given in at this point, but he's still talking about it because he can't stop thinking about it. It's an obsession. His mother's sex life is an obsession with him. Um, I will say also, one of the things that happens in Hamlet, he's extremely cruel to Ophelia. But it seems to me, in terms of psychology, one of the things Freud talked about was displacement, which is you're upset at something, but you can't get upset at that person, so you get upset at somebody else. So like if your boss is mean to you, you might come home and yell at your girlfriend, right? It's not her fault, right? But you got yelled at, and now you want to take it out on somebody else. I think that's Freud described that as displacement. That's what Hamlet is doing with Ophelia. He's not really mad at Ophelia. All that shit about Ophelia, like not being trustworthy. He's mad at his mom, and he's taking it out on Ophelia because it's like not socially acceptable for him to yell at his mom. Although now he's yelling at his mom, and it's terrible. Um, okay. "Speak to me no more. These words like daggers enter in my ear. No more, sweet Hamlet." But he can't stop. "A murderer and a villain," he's talking about Claudius, "a slave that is not the 20th tithe of your precedent lord, a vice of kings, the cut purse of an empire and the rule." Right? He stole the crown, the cut purse of the empire and the rule. "That from a shelf the precious diadem stole and put in his pocket." Right? This guy stole the crown. "No more. A king of shreds and patches." Enter Ghost. Um, the Ghost shows up again. The Ghost showed up pretty much, the Ghost showed up to the guards in the beginning, and then it told Hamlet to kill Claudius. And now and the Ghost said, "Get Claudius, get revenge against Claudius, kill him, leave your mom alone." And now he won't leave his mom alone. So the Ghost shows up to try to stop him. Like, "Leave your mom alone. I told you to leave your." Hamlet doesn't listen because he can't, he's obsessive. This is, again, another Freudian thing, the idea that the mind is obsessive and circles around one thing over and over and over and over and over again. It's called repetition compulsion, Freud called it. And the Ghost has to literally show up. Now, Hamlet can see the Ghost, but Gertrude can't. So she just sees him talking to empty air and thinks he's completely nuts. Um, um, so she thinks he's crazy. He says to the Ghost, "Do you not come your tardy son to chide, that lapsed in time and passion lets go by the important acting of your dread command?" Right? He's tardy because he's slow. He's supposed to be killing the king, and he hasn't done it. And the Ghost says, "This visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose." Right? Like, you've forgotten what you're supposed to be doing. I'm coming back to remind you. All right, pick it up in the next video.